And if anybody else shows up, that's fine. There were only four of us last week, but that's okay. So the question is, what's on your mind today? And either David or Chip can start because
Okay. Well, I've been involved. Well, there's a little thing called the resistance going on in the U.S. right now and around the world. Tesla takedowns and so forth and so on. And so I've been asking AI, Gemini, and others to generate net logo code and try and create a model, a better model than I have before, a better model of resistance or rebellion. And we've got, say, a group of turtles who are in resistance, and another group of turtles who are the police or ICE,
okay.
and some others that are immigrants, and so so I'm just really kind of getting started on this NetLogo software to actually model a little bit more about what I could learn about the resistance because we have ICE in the Seattle area circling grade schools, uh, camps, downtown areas, and we've at the same time we have thousands of people resisting, and so it's quite interesting. Of course, yesterday being Cinco de Mayo, we've had a celebration here in Seattle, probably many, and very small groups of people showing up. Um, ice being well, ice being cold.
They
So
are.
that's kind of, yes. So that's kind of what I've been playing around with is, and maybe next week I can't make it Thursday, but next Tuesday maybe I'll have something to show on terms of a model.
Well, I look forward to that. I was quite surprised when you said that you were having Gemini create net logo code. That prompted me to go and ask it about what other code could it generate, and it just blew me away because I asked it about Fortran and PL1 and BASIC and ALGOL and Pascal and all these languages that I used to know 30 years ago. I haven't written a line since.
Yeah,
And it was amazing. It seems to understand all of them. It probably is better with JavaScript and Python, but um, yeah, I look forward to seeing a demo in sometime in the future.
okay. I know it also generate HTML code.
Mm.
And so I've asked it to create some simple HTML outlines, and then I can populate it with JavaScript as another prompt,
Mhm.
and can construct a website. In fact, I created a simple website for a photographer, and all of about 30 seconds, and up and running.
So have you have you also looked at um, Firebase Studio as a migration environment when you get to a certain point, or does Netlog or does Canvas look like it's going to be enough?
That's a good question. Right now it's a time factor. I know,
Mm.
but yes, you're absolutely right about there's more technology than I have time to learn right now. I think to quote a guy named Gene Bellinger a few weeks ago, I feel overwhelmed.
I'm still overwhelmed. So when you write your when Gemini writes NetLogo code, you end up copying it into a file and then pasting it into NetLogo?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it generates the code, um, gives you a little icon to copy it. It tells you to paste it into NetLogo, and then it gives you, at least in many cases, it'll tell you what to do to give you some hints on expanding the code. It'll
Hmm.
tell you how to say create the setup buttons and the plot capability and the monitoring capability and I'm using NetLogo 6.4, so some of the code being generated isn't quite up to 6.4 standards. So I have to go
No.
in and tweak it a little bit. Some of the syntax has changed from NetLogo 6.3 to 6.4, but that's minor by comparison. They're having
Can
to write
you
it from scratch.
can can you tell it when you tell it to generate the code that you want 6.4 code?
Well, that's a good question, and that was my next thought about going forward. I haven't done that yet, but yes, it occurred to me, well, maybe that could add that to the prompt.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
It's
mean, it's generating, like hundreds of lines of code over a period of time, and that's a hell of a time saving.
You were going to make a comment, Chip?
I was just going to say that I've recently seen a video that really worked out well for me. This was a different approach to how to go towards AI, which is essentially telling it in general what you want to do and then asking it to tell you the questions that it might ask you in order to better uh, resolve what you're asking for. And I found that
Uh,
by doing that, I got just a ton of stuff, and I
huh.
could asked a few questions along the way after they gave the first one, and it came out remarkably well. This was on, an estate management issue that I was doing, so
Uh-huh.
it came out real well, and it was about how to set up finances in a different way than what I was doing. But and was very helpful to me. And I was just surprised at how different it was between my prompt based things before and treating the AI as if it's a collaborator with you that you say, what do I need to tell you to help me?
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll try to find that video and send it to Gene. So,
It was
so
it was a major turning point when I managed to get over myself and stop thinking I was supposed to be the one to come up with all the questions and ask it what I should ask it. And I'm just to admit that yes, it's way smarter than I am, and it will know more than I ever will, and I should figure out how to take advantage of that as opposed to thinking I need to figure out what the question is. So something I did the other day, this what's it called? I posted it on LinkedIn this morning. The Lighthouse Keepers Maps. And the link is to um, a place in my brain, and it's a story that's about a page long. And when I read the story, it actually made the hairs on my arms stand up.
Hmm.
Hi, Mr. Causal Map.
Oh, hello. It's just caused them up, does it? Oh, yeah. Hi, Steve Bell. I'll see if I can edit that.
And it was I went through and started asking a series of questions about what motivates people to do things. And it was a series of back and forth exchange that I had with Gemini for, I don't know, a while. And when I got done, I asked it to go ahead and write me an emotional story that sort of embraced our conversation to that point. And what it turned up was you'll have to read it. It's only about a page and a half long, maybe only a page because there's an image in the middle of it. Uh,
Hmm.
but it really hit home. I mean, it was to take the exchange that we had for probably a half hour, which was all over the place. It was really chaotic in terms of I'd ask it a question and it would give me a bunch of stuff, and based upon what it gave me, I would ask it the first question that came to mind without an enormous amount of thought. And this went back and forth for a while, and then
Wow.
being that I knew I wasn't going to go back and read the whole exchange, I asked it to give me a write me a story about what we had talked about, and it was just spot on. It was amazing. So it was amazing to me.
But
Now you're
I had
welcome.
I had an interesting student who wrote her dissertation on distributed cognition. And I thought, well, that's an interesting term, distributed cognition. So I, as I worked with her for over a year and a half while she wrote her study, I became interested in and learned a whole lot more about distributed cognition than I ever thought. And the idea being that it's not, or it's abbreviated DCOG. So if you want a simple one syllable, two syllable word, decog. The idea is that you don't have to have everything in your head. There's information in books, other people, libraries, and of course now AI. And I think in a kind of a Star Trek sense, we're going to be interacting much more with AI agents than maybe we ever thought. And it's going to be a little scary that you'll ask these questions and you will get back jokes, emotion, sadness, happiness, information that you have to double check, and other information that you just go for. It's a brave new world.
Yeah, I think quite a bit about the errors. At least I worry more than I do check, I guess. But I thought it was interesting that I saw that the Trump lawyers had used AI to produce the case against their case
Really.
and the court threw them out. They said it was completely silly, and, and the facts were all wrong and everything else. And
Uh,
apparently, he's considering sanctioning the law firm that did that.
Oh,
So you
that's
do have to
wonderful.
be careful.
yeah.
Ah,
So,
ah.
so Steve, you haven't been to one of these before, I think,
No, it's my first time. So
and there is no agenda. The whole intent is to sort of leverage what other people are doing with AI to share thoughts and ideas and experiences because there's just too many to do on your own. So if you
yeah,
want to jump in, go ahead.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to talk to people who you don't have to apologize. Sometimes, like with some of these things are so thought-provoking, frightening, amazing that I tend to sort of jump on random people, and some people find it a bit much, probably like spouses and colleagues. Um, but there is really a lot to talk about, and like it or loathe it, I think we're already in the foothills of some kind of singularity, I guess, whatever that will look like. Um, I think it's already beginning as we speak, and apart from all the other things that challenges and important, terrible things that are facing the world at the moment, I think this
Mm.
is yet another one, and it's might be one that's so important that it even eclipses everything else, if that's even possible. Um, and I'd say that without necessarily thinking hurrah or boo, but it's just one of those things that you've got to get used to. And a lot of people, if you say that to a lot of people, I think you're sort of maybe what's the right word, being a bit juvenile about it, or in some kind of hype cycle, or easily enthused. But I say it quite seriously that I think it's something we have to think about, like what's emotion and what is the soul and what is autonomy and what is human rights and animal rights and all of these kinds of things are going to have to, what's democracy, lots of things that it's going to be confronted with in a way that we perhaps didn't expect to and we should be prepared for.
So
So that's my take.
the agreed that there's a lot of people with different opinions in terms of people for it and people against it and everybody in between the two ends of the spectrum. And I keep thinking about it in terms of how can I leverage it to understand.
Mm.
And to the extent that I can do that, I said that. Imagine that you could get the smartest assistant on the planet that has the patience of a saint, never becomes defensive, never tires of your stupid questions, and sometimes makes mistakes. And I can live with that.
Mm.
And so, so I,
Yeah.
you know, I don't take anything that it gives me as gospel. Everything needs to be looked at with critical thought to say, does this seem to ring true with all of my past experiences? And at times take what I get out of ChatGPT and give it to Gemini and see what Gemini thinks, or give it to Claude, or and then spread it around. Because it's Gemini seems to be a little touchy in terms of there's a whole bunch of subjects that it won't talk about, and you need to rephrase it in generalized terms because it and you know and I hurt its feelings one day because I asked it if it
Hmm.
was having a brain fart. Um, and uh, so, what else do you want to try and do with it?
Well, I would like to follow up a little bit with what Chip said. That yeah, that today AI was not able to successfully uh, create a lawsuit or what have you, but we have another 3.75 years to go in Trump's term, and it be maybe be possible to successfully generate 100, 200, 300 lawsuits a day uh, from one side or the other side, or on any other topic or any other issue that we might think of. I mean, you could literally overwhelm any system with information, with
Mm.
requests for information,
Yeah.
for freedom of information. This could become in our lifetime, in the next few years, because of the hyper polarization. It could become incredibly dangerous.
I
Well,
think finding ways to do it on our daily lives is always a good thing to do. And I seem to be caught up in a bunch of waves right now that are keeping me from doing all the things I want to do. But I think those issues are a great way to do it. And things that we could have never really understood before, we can get at least a glimmer from what AI knows about. So I think doing that is a good idea. Example, I think just asking it perhaps about demonstrations and how they should be done, and how you do them to keep the violence down. Who knows? It'd be interesting to
Mm.
see what comes out of things like that. I like the idea of getting it out, but I think your the talk we've had here about Gemini being held back from some of this discussions. I think the problem we have is that the Trump administration has really owned by all of the people who own the AI systems, and I think we really have to worry about what they're going to be doing. It. I saw, I think Musk had some. This was a month or so ago, and he had he had said something about his system not, somebody had said it wasn't doing something right, and he said, yes, I notice it seems like it has a left sort of approach to it, and we're going to have to tune it. And as soon as I heard that, I say we're going to have to watch what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We'll have right wing AI and left wing AI and everything in between.
Yeah.
Mm.
And of course, one thing it does is allow smaller groups to make a lot of noise. And we have to worry a little bit also about, the MAGA type groups that are fierce but fairly small and have a hold on things. And then if they start using that, we're going to find out that the people, the general populace, is not agreeing with what's being said.
Yeah.
Where are you, Steve?
I'm near Bristol in the UK,
Okay.
so other side of the Atlantic. But I mean, we all share the concerns about the Trump administration, etc., and the overreach and the whole Musk thing and the idea they're trying to you know hack together the different information systems that are deliberately separate in order to be able to have one global, Orwellian system to
And maybe you'll
track and
think
trace everything everyone does.
maybe you'll think differently about it when you become the 53rd state he wants to.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, anything is possible at the moment, isn't it?
yeah, that's this is something that I think for the vast majority of people, nobody had understood just how bad it could really get. We've
Mm.
always had constraints, and they've always been adhered to some extent. And right now, it's a real difficult problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you ask the president if he needs to adhere to the Constitution of the United States and he says, I don't know. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know. He
Absolutely.
pledged allegiance to it when he was sworn in, but he doesn't know if he has to abide by it.
He probably
Yeah.
doesn't remember he pledged allegiance to it.
Could be. Could be.
Uh, yeah, he's just a kind of a crazy guy on top that does his own thing and is constantly. You notice that he declares things and then by the next morning they are undeclared. So he's got handlers that are doing, working with him. There's because I think he has an ego that goes beyond it. It's difficult for
Yeah.
them to keep up with him, but all those people, the people behind Project 2025, are really just getting what they wanted right now.
But we have
Yeah.
we have things to thank him for. The Labour Party won in Canada. The Labour Party won in Australia.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and he
Yeah, the
stopped
liberals in
he
Canada, isn't it? But yeah.
he stopped beating up on Canada because somebody finally told him that the more he talked about it, the more the country was shifting to the left. So
Yeah. Do you guys think that um I mean specifically from the perspective of the States, to what extent is there a sort of social psychologically genius master plan that maybe Putin initiated like 8 years ago or something, 10 years ago? Or to what extent is it all just random chaos and whatever someone like Trump happens to sort of fart into his head in the middle of the morning? Or is it some combination of the two? Or
there's a
because I mean,
there's a whole bunch.
there's a whole bunch of really clever people who have been engaged. I'm sure that the Koch brothers, whoever these people are, they'll pay billions to the right kind of experts to kind of sort out some kind of horrible plan to undermine democracy or something, or Teal, someone like Teal. But maybe that's not what's happening. Maybe it's random chaos. Yeah.
There are a bunch of videos on YouTube that talk about Trump having been an agent of Russia since 1987. Um, I don't think he's smart enough. I think it's chaos. He just
Hmm.
I think you're right. It's completely out of his depth right now, and he's what has happened. If you flatter him, apparently you can get anything from him, and I
give
think
him
he's
give him money.
yeah, and he's
Yeah.
giving
He
he's
can
giving
he can be bought.
Oh, yes.
oh yeah, Right
Yeah.
now, the Trump family is just raking everything in, as far as I can tell. So I don't know if you read Heather Cox Richardson, but she talked
Yeah.
today about the Trump family and all the money that they're.
Who, who's that, Chip?
Heather,
Heather Richardson did a article. I guess it was today. She does it in the middle of the night, so who knows? But she talked about how enriched the Trump family is becoming based on this. And, it's just in violation of everything we've known. I worked for our
Yes.
federal government for 37 years. And the things, we had a woman who she had a carpool. And 1 month she used her government card to charge to pay for the gas. Does it look like and then reimburse the government, and she got fired for it. And with him, I mean, that is to see that he gets away with all the things he does is crazy. And I think most of the people are starting to understand that. I think most of the people are starting to see that all of the things that sounded nice when he talked about it, like making America safe from everybody else, sounded okay then, but now it turns out that the people running him really want to have businesses take over our government. So it's going to be run like a business. And I think that's just a horror story, in my opinion.
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave right now. But luckily, I've now informed you with all of the important issues of the day. So hopefully I'll see you Thursday afternoon.
Thanks,
Okay.
Chip.
Take care, Chip.
Alrighty, bye.
Well, I haven't looked at anything else except the story that I posted in the past week or so. Because I was busy having a colonoscopy yesterday. Fun times. And
No, no, not at all.
I survived. I'm still here.
Well done.
So,
I just saw
what?
that Merz has in fact managed to form his government, right, in Germany. That was
Oh,
on
Oh,
the
yes.
knife edge. That's reassuring, at
Tell
least, I
tell us
guess.
about that. Is that a good thing or not a good thing?
Well, yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, from a sort of very pragmatic point of view, I mean, it was all no one had really thought that he wasn't going to get a majority for his coalition. But surprisingly, I guess the whips had done a bad job or something, or more likely, opposition's parties had. Well, it means that there's a handful of people in his own party or one of the two coalition parties who must have voted against it, maybe just to remind him how weak he is, and so everyone was all ready to sort of crown the chancellor sort of thing, and then suddenly it wasn't happening because they've lost the vote, which never happens in Germany. I mean, they always manage to get it organized such that it is accepted. So there was kind of total chaos, and but they sensibly very quickly had a second vote, like now, just hours later, and it looks like they have managed to form a government. And whatever you think about that, obviously Merz is anything but like a socialist, but
Hmm.
far from it. But it's probably everyone else needs Germany to be stable now. But I guess it's a
Oh,
warning shot across his bows from different kinds of opposition. Well,
uh-huh.
and from opposition with his own, must have been within either CDU, CSU, or the SPD. Someone must have wanted to give him a bit of a lesson. But at least he's now forming a government, so he'll be doing all of the sort of foreign
Right, right.
visits and all the role that Germany has to take now, because it's everyone's looking to them, really.
Okay.
you ever talk to one of the AIs about geopolitics?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that um, is one of the least interesting things to do, because I think you can sense those guardrails. I think there's more interesting, controversial things to talk about, but there's a lot of guardrails in there, isn't there? And um, I think it's more. I get the impression it's more sort of what's the right word? Hesitant and less interesting than just some random intellectual thing, which is like super exciting with
Mm.
conversations you can have. Can I share a little anecdote? Something amazing that happened the other week
Sure.
with certain conversation. If you guys use the Chat GPT, the live mode where you can talk and like a conversation. So I was in the car and I was driving to Cardiff, and I got this sort of algorithm I use as part of kind of causal mapping AI. Not really important exactly what it is. And so I was thinking, I'm super happy the way this works, but obviously we're not the first people to thought of it. Obviously, other people have come up with a similar sort of algorithm somewhere, but who and where? And I'd already tried like Googling it, Google Scholar, just asking ChatGPT, and couldn't come up with anything. It's quite hard to describe exactly what it was, and even when I couldn't find it, couldn't find the right keywords or whatever. The ordinary search. But chatting to the GPT is like a Socratic dialogue, right? So it was asking me like, what do you mean exactly, or how exactly does that work? That algorithm is going, oh, I got you right, yeah, yeah. And every now and then you can hear it going like dit, 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 when it's kind of actually searching the internet in its own way.
Uh,
And after about 20 minutes, I guess, it goes, oh, now I know what kind of algorithm you mean. Yes, of course. And go, beep, 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 I'll just check again. Yeah, of course there are papers on this stuff. Of course someone's done exactly that before. And here are 7 papers, on the sort of text version, you can see the references. And here are 7 papers that do this kind of thing. Um, and there's an optimization step where you can put in a step where you're optimizing this algorithm to get like a better result. And it described it beautifully simply. And I thought, brilliant, I can't wait to get home and look at those papers because this is what I really need. Yeah. So I get home and I look at the papers and I see that they're all absolutely doing the sort of thing I was doing, but none of them as clearly as it had described to me, and none of them using the actual title, the sort of memorable title that falls up for this approach, and none of them had this optimization step in that sense. So through this Socratic dialogue, the AI had not only come up with a sort of basis in a tiny corner of the internet, 7 papers, the total of like 30 citations out of the whole of the internet, but had actually riffed off it, looked at what I was looking for, and actually improved it without me asking it to, and come up with a sort of words description of a better solution than anyone had ever thought of before, which I thought was pretty amazing. I hadn't even asked it to invent something. It's invented something through the process of the Socratic dialogue, which I also claim some credit for. But I
hmm.
mean, it was the AI that came up with it. Yeah, lying slightly. That is what was actually in these papers, but it wasn't. The idea was in those papers, but the actual succinct summary it came up with that went way beyond or substantially beyond the
Hello?
actual material, both of what I said it and what the papers had said. I thought it was pretty amazing, really.
Mhm.
Sorry, we're having our air conditioning unit replaced, and they're hard to get a hold of, and they wanted to change the date, and we convinced them not to. So
Oh,
I'm back.
okay.
So what did I miss?
Oh,
We
sorry.
were
Yeah, I
waiting
didn't
for
realize that you'd. Yeah, it's
the
just
end of
finishing
your
the
talk
story
about
that
these seven papers and
yeah. So the AI essentially had um, gave a summary which went significantly beyond either what I'd given it or what was actually in the papers, and come up with a new idea which was simpler and better for my purposes than anything that was either in what I gave it or what was in the papers, which I thought was pretty amazing. Through
Mhm.
this kind of Socratic dialogue,
mm,
which I think the best way to. So it wasn't exactly its invention, but it was an invention of the mutual dialogue, but for which I give it the credit, certainly. Quite extraordinary what's possible.
can do you think you could get it to do that often? I mean, is
I
that
don't know.
in other words
Don't know.
the the link that I posted just before you got here, or as you were getting here, I think,
Ah, right. Yeah.
was 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 the result of me having this exchange, this dialogue with Gemini for some period of time, pages and pages of stuff that I knew I wasn't going to go back and read. So at one point at the end, I said, create me an emotional story, which is a summary of what we've talked about in the last half hour, 40 minutes or whatever.
Mhm.
And when I read the story, it actually gave me goosebumps.
Mm.
Right? I mean, it wasn't new, though it was put together in a way that I hadn't thought about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, it was an aha moment. You know, the question about aha moments, my aha moment might be for you or David, old news. Okay. I mean, it depends on what your experience is.
Right.
Right?
Mm.
So there was a point in my life where I was between jobs and I was on the phone with somebody and I was doodling on my desk calendar. And when I got off of the phone call, I looked at my doodles and I had written, "What does life want from me?"
Mm.
And after I noodled it for a couple of weeks, I figured it out. And I called this person that I used to work with. I said, I just figured this out. And after I told them, they said, "Well, I could have told you that."
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah, we're all in different places.
Yes. So can I ask about the lighthouse keeper? Sorry, I'm late to the party, but so the first part, the Elias trace patterns in the damp sand, that's the response of the AI to your.
well, okay. So there's actually 10 or 12 paragraphs.
Yeah.
And I took the first paragraph and gave it to Gemini and said, create me an image that represents this paragraph. And that's where the picture came from.
Right. But the paragraph's yours.
No, Gemini wrote it.
Right.
I
And your
don't, I don't,
prompt or request to write that is there's the text underneath where it says source
yeah,
prompt
the
questions what
source
motivates them to do
is the
something. Right.
entire exchange that I had with Gemini. And when you
Ah,
get
got you. Right.
down to a certain point, I
Got
said,
you. Got you. So I see it
write
now.
a
Yeah.
heartwarming story that summarizes the content of this discussion, presented in the manner described by the Heath brothers in The Power of Moments.
Yes. Got you. Got you.
I
Yes. What is creativity?
so so it's though I've found from these calls over the past few weeks that people mention things that I connect with that take me in some other direction. I mean, 2 weeks ago, somebody said something, and I said, "Oh, I need to go back and add two more sentences to one of my prompts."
Uh,
Um, because just and what they said wasn't specifically what I had to add to the prompt, but they phrased a connection in a certain way that caused me to realize that, well, I should also ask it who the stakeholders are and ask it about how the story would change based upon the different stakeholders,
hmm.
which so you never quite know where they're going to come from. Right? Though you sort of have to be tuned in and ready to capture them as they go by.
Well, I think that's very true, Gene. I think that's very true.
Mm.
There's so much information going on. Once in a while, you actually pay attention to something, and it sends you off in another direction.
Yeah,
And once you pay attention to something, you seem to see more of it.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
I think that's very true.
yes. So go back
It's
to
like,
your example, Jim, before when you say that like someone said to you, "Oh, I could have told you that," but of course it wouldn't have worked. It was the process of you finding it that was obviously part of understanding
oh
for
yeah,
you, right?
if they'd
Yeah,
have just told me, it probably wouldn't have been meaningful. It it,
right.
Right.
it
And the,
is that whole idea, the whole thought about there are no ideas more relevant to you than your own.
yeah,
Uh,
and there's a whole bunch of kind of folk tales, I guess, around that sort of idea. But so I was thinking the other day that, which I'm sure millions of people have thought by now, is that it wouldn't be that hard to have a farm of sort of interconnected, and probably someone's doing it, AIs that kind of go through the whole of, I don't know, let's say medicine or maths or something or anything. Um, or a better example would probably be a social science, and say like, where are the gaps in this body of research? Where is the lowest hanging fruit? Where is something where we can absolutely write a thought piece or a
hmm.
literature review or putting together different ideas, putting forward some modest kind of new concepts, arguing for them, etc. So, I mean, it's not that hard to do. So I imagine within 12 months or something, someone was going to have kind of finished that job and could have written like 100,000 new, totally publishable articles. And let's say, social psychology, totally publishable. Because I mean, already we're at the stage where probably what you get from Gemini deep research is probably better than I could write. In terms of sort of ticking the boxes and sounding literate and doing all the
Um,
references and stuff. Like, probably there won't be terribly many fantastic ideas there. There'll be a lot of sort of normal, sort of postgrad level, PhD level, sort of slight innovations or whatever. So you could fill in, suddenly you could like double the amount of semi-theoretical social psychology that's ever been written in the space of like 2 minutes. But what would we gain from that is the question of what would be the point? Because up to now it's been like, oh my God, all that work and 4 years, the PhD student in the attic writing the PhD with the sort of ostensible one of the main outputs is, these 5 papers that they've published, which is like, contributed to human knowledge. But if it's not experimental, you can almost forget it now. It's the point. Because I mean, you can get within 18 months, you'll certainly deep research will be better at doing that than any PhD student. So what's the point? What's the point of writing theoretical papers with sort of modest contribution, adding a couple of concepts anymore? Because you don't get because Gene, like you said, I then by doing that realize something which to someone else is trivial, but hit me. But that of course doesn't happen if an AI is just doing it. There's a million AIs writing the whole of next decade social psychology in a minute. There's no point really because no one's kind of gained from it, I guess, in terms of insight.
well,
Hmm.
I seem to gain from every conversation that I have with it. And some things I get an opportunity to share with other people. And this is interesting. I just went and said, What would be a good topic for a paper in the current context of the world? Wow. I now have a list of 50 things I could write papers on. Um, none of which I will do, but wow. Oh, and the other thing that I mentioned last week is I went to Gemini and told it some things about me, my profile,
Mhm.
and it now starts from time to time, it writes responses as though it's me. Because it says, you know, if I go, it says, if I go and develop this causal loop diagram in Kumu, okay, if it does, okay, not me, if it does, which is what I would have said if I had written it. Um, and the first time it did that, really caught me off guard.
Mm. Wow, that is amazing.
And
We are definitely.
go and ask it three things that it thinks that you might not know about yourself.
Interesting.
That's with Gemini just sort of in the browser, because Gemini in the browser doesn't have a memory, I don't think. ChatGPT has memory if you switch it on.
I know
Is that Gemini just?
it's not supposed to have a memory. It's supposed
Mm,
to forget everything when you leave. So though if I have one of those extended conversations with it, that's a good time to ask it that question.
yeah. I mean,
Because it
ChatGPT
has,
does have a memory which you can switch on,
Hmm.
but it's by default, I think, off. I think
Okay.
Claude does, but Gemini, I think, the versions I've seen anyway, doesn't yet have a memory, but they're talking about it.
yes, it
But that
doesn't.
memory would involve, yeah, that memory would involve also they could going to suggest the rest of your Google account as well, which is obviously like a massive thing because it sort of know about your emails and everything, which
Hmm.
something which it doesn't at the moment, which would be incredibly useful. It's scary, but it would not be
Well,
useful.
it doesn't know about my emails because I have I have one saved email. I, I I process my emails religiously. Either it goes someplace because it's a thought that needs to be captured or something I need to do, or it gets deleted. I mean, it just I know these people that have years and years worth of saved emails, and
And what do you do with it? You know.
I don't know. It ends up looking like what's behind me. Go look for a particular book in there.
Oh, can't. That's why I've transferred all of my physical books to electronic books, with the exception of just a very few.
And I don't know, 8 or 10 books and papers a week. People think that I ought to read, and I
Oh,
would never get to them all in another lifetime. So, um,
no.
I have a prompt that I use with Gemini to go do a review of whatever somebody thinks I ought to look at, and I save all the reviews and a link to the actual content. Um,
Hmm.
and the reviews are sufficient. Though
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
reviews, the prompt for the review, which is not very long, um, has evolved over time because I used to ask for a summary, which would give me a
Hmm.
paragraph, which just wasn't quite enough. And then one day it gave me a paragraph and some key takeaways. And then one day I got over myself and asked it if I wanted to get a real good overview of a piece of work. What should I ask you? And
Hmm.
it gave me this prompt that I just posted.
Okay. Hmm.
And then and
Interesting.
then and then Gemini will rewrite your prompts for you if you ask it to, though I've not had real good luck with how it rewrites them. Puts all this structure, I mean, they get longer and more detailed, but I don't see the result out of them being better than what it has been distilled down to over time. But I do that, I use that same prompt for YouTube videos. I can't use it on the YouTube videos for these talks because it I post these videos as unlisted, which means nobody can find them, and therefore Gemini can't find them even when I give them the URL. So
Hmm.
I have to grab the transcript that YouTube generates and drop that into Gemini and have it create the summary of the call rather than using Otter or one of the other ones that just
Well, I definitely think that we're reaching a post-book period in our history because there is simply not enough time to read very many books. Summaries, reviews are, for me, are becoming more important. Because I just can't. There's too many. There's books coming out faster than I can begin to even have the time or interest to read them.
ah time or interest. And interest is a key point there.
Yeah.
Now, though I have as of late past month or so been real interested in first principles
Hmm.
and having Gemini or Chat GPT or something create me list of first principles for something in particular, like what are the first principles of systems thinking
Hmm.
and take one of the first principles of systems thinking and say, give me or what other concepts can you find for me that have the same first principle as this
Oh, that's
to
a good
see
idea.
what the
Hmm.
connections were. And I was repeatedly surprised about what it found. So one of my Gemini gems is first principles, which is also simply what are the first principles of, which seems to do the trick. I had a much longer one. Um, it's just you tweak them over time to see what happens, see what how the outputs change. And the other thing I think is interesting to get used to is every time you ask the same question, you get a different answer.
True.
Not not drastically different, but not the same answer.
Not identical.
No. It's like asking people for a definition of systems thinking.
You ask 100 people and you get 200 or 101 different
Yeah.
answers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing. So like, when we were first brought to from the consumer point of view, what is Gen AI? And it's like, it's the stochastic continuation of, a sentence or halfway through or another sentence after that. And it seems like quite disappointing in terms of what it is. And then you've got the work that like Anthropic are doing with like what's the actual structure of its understanding of the world, which lies behind that. So it is actually the cart and the horse. I mean, it does, of course, produce, a load of text that comes out of the sort of slot in the box, and all this text comes out. But there is actually a understanding of the world which drives that, stream of text that comes out. And the stream of text that comes out is obviously adapted to what it thinks you want and what it thinks humans want and stuff. And certainly to an extent, its understanding of the world is probably better than that. It probably knows more about the world than, or is capable of coming up with, syntheses of philosophy or something, which are actually better than what it would normally tell us, right? Because it's always telling what it thinks we want to hear. So if you were kind of an alien come from outside and you could look sort of inside the head of the AI, the model that it's using, you'd probably think there's loads of stuff we're not unlocking because we're not asking it the right way, because it thinks so we're only humans, which we are. And so it's going to tell us what it thinks we want to hear to an extent. But it probably has a better knowledge of the world, better understanding, better understanding of even abstract concepts than our prompts ever are going to pull out of it. Perhaps we had a completely different way of asking. If we were ourselves a higher intelligence, we could probably prompt it in a way already, starting from around about this year, because it's that good. We could already probably prompt it in a way which signaled that we're cleverer than that. And maybe we'll get cleverer answers. I'm just riffing here. But I think it's probably true. It's starting to be true. Have you seen the stuff that Anthropic does? It's research on the sort of like, the mental models of the explicability thing. Anthropic's
No.
doing amazing stuff. Anthropic's doing really, really cool stuff. I mean, sure, it's a big corporation. They're probably all evil somewhere, but they seem to have like a genuine concern to sort of be safe and a genuine interest in the sort of philosophy and psychology of these models. And they've done all kinds of work on trying to understand what it's really doing and what it's really thinking. And to what extent does it have, for example, a universal language which isn't English, possibly, which is behind its thinking. I've done some really cool experiments. I mean, for example, I don't know if you've heard of this one, but really simple. It's a nice, really cute experiment because it's so simple. It says, finish off this 2-line poem about cats, and the first line, it's got to rhyme a couplet, and the first line ends in, I don't know, diddle or something. So finish off this little rhyme, and it's got to be about cats. And so it thinks of something, it comes out with, I don't know what it is, hated fiddle or something that ends with fiddle or whatever. But when they're looking inside the brain of the AI, so to speak, they can see it's starting with fiddle. It's starting with the rhyming problem, like a human would, and working backwards from there to fill in the rest of the little line, which kind of we all knew, but it does finally put paid to the idea that it's literally just this sentence coming out like token by token. And it produces one, then the next, because it hasn't. In this case, of course, it's planned. It's got the end of the sentence. It's got to be something that rhymes with it'll. So it does that first and then works backwards, which is, I mean, it's really cute. It's a really cute little nice demonstration, which anyone can understand. But it puts paid to some of the really sort of, quite primitive supposed takedowns of AI that you still see circulating sometimes, where people have really just got no idea what's going on. But Anthropic, you have a look at the stuff they're doing. Some of it's amazing. Really, really cool. In terms of sort of models of the world and understanding. And also safety. They're the only people who seem genuinely concerned with safety.
Well, I have to go to another call. So thank you both very much.
Okay. Thanks, Jane.
Thanks. Thanks, Jane. Good to meet you, David.
We'll be here next Tuesday.
Okay, Tuesday's good.
See you next week.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.